person betraying the entire system. One person betraying the entire system consistently. And so if you look at the Oyo Empire, you will find a Basharuga who was supposed to be, someone who balanced power, seeking to become the most powerful person himself. So forcing several kings to commit suicide, by bringing out the calabash that you must not bring out. It's called Sheba. Once you bring out that calabash, the king has to commit suicide, right? He became so powerful that absolute power corrupted him absolutely. So you find out that one of the greatest reasons why we have not been able to scale. Thank you very much, Dr. Chigi. He says, same narrative later with Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. It's the fact that everything started well, then someone becomes the devil. I mean, the Bible says, and the devil enters Satan. The devil will enter someone, and before you know it, it's either that person suddenly decides to become forever president, or someone feels, oh, why should it be this person leading? Let's also do our own. And so you find it play out across our spheres of influence, from politics to religion, to everything. Everybody wanting to start their own, everybody wanting to be. So at the end of the day, if it's a business, at the end of the day, we build smaller units that is not going to go anywhere, right? In silos. So instead of 5 businesses collaborating to build a conglomerate, the problem is who is going to lead. Then when we overcome who is going to lead, who should have the lion's share, right? And before you know it, we're back to square one in fighting. And that's one of the things the colonialists did very well. They pitched nations together within the same country to begin to fight themselves for the rest of their life. So in Nigeria, once you do something, they'll say, oh, it's Indigo. Once you do this, they say Yoruba, and it's the politicians, playing all these games, divide and rule, to mess us up. Now, if we don't, I believe there is a strong agitation and there's a waking in the spirit for our world to produce a group of people can be trusted. Businesses, investment companies that can be trusted to warehouse wealth on behalf of other people and deliver on what is promised. Now, the death of Patrice Lumumba was a painful one for me as I began to dig deeper, because it looks to me like the guy was simply a replica of maybe Martin Luther King Jr. or a Malcolm X, because he also died at 35, and I'm looking at what that guy had achieved at 35, and I'm looking at what they say a 35-year-old cannot achieve in a country like Nigeria. A typical 35-year-old, I don't even know what they're doing right now, but a 35-year-old, the Nkrumahs of this world, all the Pan-African leaders, were in their 30s when they conquered the territories and when they started to provide leadership for their country. Now, we need to begin to arise. So there was an Africa, there is an African right now that nobody wants to reckon with. We're now the begging bowl of the entire world, which never used to be. But there has to be a new generation of Africa. I mean, we're saviors that we will have to lead, we will have to spearhead, and we will have to model that. When they say an African, they can't think of incompetence, they can't think of stealing, they can't think of betrayal, they can't think of treachery, they can't think of snitching on your brothers. What they think about is we are so together, like we say Ubuntu, I am because you are. The uplifting of an African is your own uplifting. Your success of someone is the success of another. The success of a company is the success of another company. That we don't tear ourselves down, we don't pull ourselves down. So today, we start a series that has been titled From Chaos to Cohesion, building the most effective groups. From chaos to cohesion, building the most effective group. And I don't want you to miss this series because it's going to be so instructive for what we are going to do. By the way, the cooperative is up and running. Finally, they give them the documents they need for setting up the accounts. And hopefully this new week, the accounts will be set up and it's up and running, and then investments can start. The team is working so hard and they are doing incredibly well. Thank you very much, Mrs. Stone, Deton, Otepola, and God's Will, and the rest of the team working together. Thank you very much. Please, let's go to the chat box and appreciate our cooperative team They have been so selfless, right? Meeting day and night to ensure that we build wealth. So let's just appreciate it. Now, I want to start this series, right, from chaos to cohesion, building the most effective groups, by using a case study. Now, I want you to look at these names: Larry Fink, Robert S. Capito, Susan Wagner, Barbara Novick, Ben Golub, Hug Frater, Rav Skolstein, and Kate Anderson. Now, are you familiar with any of these names? Right? It's a yes or no answer question. Are you familiar with any of these names? Is there any of them that you can readily recognize? You know, can you just go to the chat box and tell me yes or no? Okay, Dr. Princess can recognize Susan Wagner. Grace says no, none. Obi Davis, none. Okay. Let me have more people. Okay, Okwayemi says no, we don't recognize them. It's interesting that we don't recognize these people. I also couldn't have recognized them except for maybe Larry Fink, because I've been doing some digging and studying a group. But it's interesting that popularity and fame and influencing is overrated. That, oh, you know, I want to go on Instagram, I want to be known. The people that control this planet are unknown. You can't readily recognize them. You know, we did a series where I was talking to you that the most powerful system is the system where you can't even recognize the owners if you met them on the road. Now, these guys, you do not recognize them, you do not know them, but do you recognize any of these logos? Please, can you answer this question? Meta, Tesla, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Apple. Yes or no? Do you recognize this logo? You recognize this logo? Yes. Yes, you know them, Dr. Chigi is saying you can see my point. Okay, you know them, right? Now, it's interesting to know that you will mention Mark Zuckerberg when you mention Meta. You will mention what's the Tesla guy again? Elon Musk when you mention Tesla. You will look at Steve Jobs when you look at Apple, Microsoft. In fact, you would say that Microsoft and Apple are enemies, right? You would mention Bill Gates with Microsoft, you know, the Google owners, then Amazon, Jeff Bezos. You will mention these people. But it's interesting that you cannot relate these guys to these companies when these guys are actually the forces behind this company. So let me tell you about Larry Fink and these guys. These guys came together to provide institutional clients with asset management services from a risk management perspective. Fink, Capital, Golub, Novick had worked together at first Boston, where Fink and his team were pioneers in the mortgage-backed security market in the United States. Now, these guys are the owners of the BlackRock investment group. BlackRock is the world's largest asset managers with $9.42 trillion in assets under management as of June 30th, 2023. BlackRock operates globally with 70 offices in 30 countries and clients in 100 countries. Now, what comes to your mind now that you know that these guys are the owners, literally, of the world, right? Is to say to you that popularity is overrated. In fact, the more famous you are, right, the less powerful you could be. The fact that people know you, you can be known and be poor. You can be well popular and be broke, right? But you want to ask yourself, what did these guys do that made them so powerful enough that people could trust them with so much of that wealth? If you have not heard BlackRock Group before, please go and study BlackRock. Very interesting dynamics, interesting reality. I've been studying them and I'm wondering that, how can we grow a group that people can commit so much funds into the hand? Because just this week, news broke that a startup in Ghana that had just raised money, they are going out of extinction, going into extinction rather. simply because there was some kind of mismanagement, so they had to sell off the company, because it was a startup, but the CEO was paying himself, I think, $50,000 as salary every month. So you see shades of that across our continent, that in fact, it's not just limited to Africans alone. You've had people collected money, but our people. So someone starts a real estate company or starts an investment company, and this money it's not his money. It's the money that people have entrusted into his hand. And before you know it, the same guy who couldn't afford a car is not just going to buy a car. The guy is going to buy a state-of-the-art car, and his garage will be full of cars. So he's become like Burna Boy, he's a celebrity. So this guy is going to start flying business class on the funding that was entrusted into his hand. This guy is not going to think of bringing in eggheads, bringing in new people. And that's why we always say that if anybody is saying to you, bring your money to me and I'll help you double it, check the board. If that guy is the only person you say, there are lots of them on social media, they are experts at making a lot of noise. You see them, they're flying from one country to the other, taking pictures of airplane, of private jet, taking pictures of themselves in first class, showing themselves across different nations. The question you should ask before you commit your money into such people is, who else do you know in that company? If anything happens to this guy, who else can you hold? The moment you can't find anyone else that you can, and I'm not talking about their boys who work with them, anyone with that clout, with that level of integrity, anyone who has staked his name, his reputation on behalf of that organization, the moment you can't find, please run. Because many of them use your money to fly around the world, to do stuff, to do lao, because at the end of the day, you're asking yourself, if these people are running around the world, what time do they have to manage your investment portfolio? The guys who really, really are interested in managing portfolio on behalf of other people, they are not obsessed with social media influencing. They are not obsessed with popularity. They are not obsessed with blue badges or whatever. These guys, you don't know them, but these guys have the largest fund management companies in the world, managing the highest amount in assets. $9 trillion US is not a joke. In fact, that's almost like maybe some countries or continents' entire economy. Right. So that should tell you that there is something these guys have mastered that we need to pay attention to. So the Bible says one shall chase 1,000, while two shall chase 10,000. So if you are a student of the Bible, you will know consistently, Bible is a promoter of two, or it's a promoter of group. So when God was creating the heavens and the earth, the Bible says, and God said, let us make man. I'll create this and that. But when it got to man, he says, let us make man in our image. Why did Jesus need a group? Why did Jesus send them out 2 by 2? Because he knows that if all you have is one person who called the shot, that person is going to self-implode with time, except there is checks and balances, or except the person has some kind of humility or some kind of brokenness, right? That human beings are not built to be independent. We are built to be interdependent. And so God knows what the power of a group can achieve if we pay attention to the formation of the teams. So here are a couple of fundamental truths I want you to consider as we start this theory. 1, the greatest thing in life is often built by teams and groups. So if that group, the BlackRock, had gone, if it's just one person, they say, bring your money, after a while, people stop giving them money because they know that is a high risk investment option. Because if you are giving money to one individual who doesn't have a structure, doesn't have a system, in fact, it's interesting to know that many of the people give money to in Nigeria, they don't even have an accountant. They don't have a lawyer. They don't, if you get to the organization, you just see funny people, right? That in your wildest imagination, how they convinced you, and how what they've known used to convince you is to show you that we don't need your money. So when you see them in jets, when you see them with big cars, when you see them, they usually take pictures. That is the memo. They take pictures with high net worth individual, get themselves into high net worth meetings to convince you that, you know what, I can be trusted. But that's not how to trust. How you trust is due diligence. How to trust is to check the account, the audited account. How to check is to look at the people in their management team, the board, and all those things. That's how to check. Reputation, check, and all those things. So the greatest thing in life is often built by teams and groups. But number two, however, teams and groups must be intentionally built before they can build great things together. When we started House of Saviors, we always knew we're going to do cooperative. We always knew we're going to do that. However, we said that year one, we're not going to collect money from anybody to do any investment because we still don't know the people. People are just coming together and we're just getting to meet us. So let us wait, right? Even year two, we were not able to do it, but we were doing planning because it's not, money is not something you just warehouse like that and be given empty promises, right? So we had to get the best in the house and put them as the investment group. I'm not even in that group, and they started meeting and we got some of the best guys together. Now, every time I'm trying to rush them, they say, Praise, you can't rush us. We need to do it right. Right. Teams and groups must be intentionally built before they can build great things together. The challenge is that oftentimes there are so many groups that say we're a group, but it's not a group. It's just one person that every other person is serving. So when you are in a group and you have no voice and you can talk and you can hear your grievances and something is wrong, but you can't say it out, then you are not in a group. You are just following someone who has built a system and you are just part of the followers or something like that. The greatest impediment to building great teams is the quest for personal agenda, which has led to the death of some of the most brilliant ideas that never scaled. So check Africa. Imagine if Patrice Lumumba had been left alone. Maybe that nation, Congo, would have developed. Of course, it can also be that it will become a victim of his own success because Kwame Nkrumah was highly successful in Ghana, but Kwame Nkrumah became a victim of his success by seeking to become life president. I think that was the beginning of his undoing, and they had to take him out. Of course, sad story. Kwame Nkrumah was so brilliant that he wanted a united Africa. And that was all he was promoting all his life. He wanted Africa to open up because it's tougher to travel within Africa than to travel from Africa to Europe. Very tough. To go from Nigeria to Benin Republic, it's not that easy, even though it's close together, right? The number of hours you spend in transit in some countries, it's unbelievable. So our personal agenda, individual agenda, often struggles to be collapsed into a universal or a group agenda. So before you know it, everybody begins to think, okay, let me go and start my own. Let me go and start my own so that I can warehouse the entire money. Let me go and start. And before you know it, what should be a formidable force becomes scattered. Of course, it will serve some purposes, but at the end of the day, it's what it is. So individual agenda. So oftentimes when you're setting up a group, you need to ask yourself, the people you are bringing together to set up your group, are they willing to go all the way? Is it going to be our thing, or is it going to be one person's thing where is the only one who can fly, is the only one who can scale, is the only one, every other person can be broke, and he doesn't care. So over time, Mobutu, I believe devil entered him, and he was used to take out this guy, and that was what happened. So eventually, he took out a guy that should have grown the nation into an environment where everyone can prosper. Number four, you have to understand that at the heart of group building, however, is people discovery and management, without which no group can become great. That one of the mistakes people make is they do not intentionally discover the people, and they do not intentionally manage the people. So once people are not intentionally discovered, which is we're coming together as a group, we don't know ourselves. It's like people get married. Love at first sight. I don't believe in it. I think attraction at first sight is more like it. So you meet this person, you are meeting them for the first time, and you talk and you gelled and everything was fine. And you convinced yourself that, wow, this is my new best friend. It's as if we have known each other for the rest of our life. How many of you have made that statement? You met someone for the first time and you're like, wow, it's as if we have known each other for the first time, and you are willing to put your life in their hand. If you have been a victim of that, can you still type I? Can you type I? I know many of you have been. You fell in love with a guy, right? First time, love at first sight. Okay, so you can see. It's a naive statement. I've also been a victim of that, right? That you just simply believe someone because he's talking. And they can even guilt trip you when you want to do your due diligence. They will say to you, is it that you don't trust me? Yes, I don't trust you. I shouldn't be able to trust you from the get-go. And I trust you just because of your words? I don't know. Ideally, you should be able to trust people by their words. At the highest level of humanity, that's what it should be. Your words should be enough. But events have shown that people's words are not enough. People can get drunk. And some guy was teaching something in America, and I went to attend the meeting. And because I have access to him, he taught a lot of erroneous things. So I walked up to him after the meeting. I said, sir, you've made these two statements out of several other things. And I thought you were wrong here, right? And he looked at me and said, oh, Praise, I think I just got carried away. But you have sold error. It's not going to go back to tell the people I'm sorry, right? But they have run with the error. So people discovering, you need to learn to discover people. You need to learn to manage people. So you cannot be naive enough and just, throw your money into people's hand or just do things anyhow or just fall in love anyhow. Number 5, great teams are built by great people with a great heart and purpose, not necessarily by perfect people. So the people you're building with are never going to be perfect. However, their heart has got to be perfect. What does that mean literally? It means that even when they make mistake, the intention is not to swindle you. And when they make mistake, they take responsibilities for their mistakes and they make a commitment of how they're going to resolve it. Then, the most arrogant people, how many of you have someone here who is owing you or you invested with, right? And has done nothing to deliver on it and is living large? Anybody like that? Hi, right? So you see people like that. If I have people's money, I'm not at peace. And that's the truth, right? My wife knows I won't be at peace until money is refunded and all. I don't actually personally warehouse people's money, right? So it doesn't have to be perfect. Your leader will never be perfect. Your partners will not be perfect. However, everyone's heart is committed towards the goal and not towards individual agenda. Now, we must never expect perfect behavior from imperfect people. However, measures must be put in place to manage the excesses of imperfect people, lest the group implode. And that is why, if you get into any group, you must know the vision, you must know the values of the group, you must know the structure of the group. And those are things that you should be free to ask any organization you belong to. Because the moment you ask a leader, what is the vision of this organization? What are the values? Can I see the structure of this organization? And the leader says to you, that's none of your business. Then please use your leg and wear a spike shoe and run, right? Because systems and structures is what prevents people from becoming tyrannical leaders. If there were no systems in America, I'm not sure Donald Trump would have left office. After he lost the election, he kept claiming that it was rigged. Whether it was another game, we don't know, but he would not have left. He was willing to burn down the country, but for rules and regulation and system and structure, because America says that once a leader is a threat to the nation, the people have a right to revolt. That's part of the Constitution in America, right? So you find out that in Africa, our structures have become emotional. Ideally, for example, in Nigeria, DSS is supposed to be independent. INEC is supposed to be independent. There are agencies of government. Supreme Court, judiciary is supposed to be independent. Legislature is supposed to be independent. But we have a culture where once there's a president, everyone defers to the man. So even institutions that should be independent becomes partisan because everybody must dance to the rules and regulation of the man they are supposed to check. So systems and structures is what helps teams and groups not to implode and to stand the test of time. Africa is in need of groups working together to create great solutions. And I want to believe that at the end of this session, you will begin to pay attention to growing groups. You want to decide what groups you want to be a part of, and you want to decide in, giving your all to the success of whatever group you belong to or whatever group you're going to start. Now, we all know the system of team performance that was built, the framework for team performance that was built by Bruce Tuckman. And so this system or framework can serve you in business, can serve you in marriage, can serve you anywhere you have more than 2 people. It serves as a guide that helps you understand the journey, right, or the trajectory process of that group. The first stage that Bruce Tuckman talked about is the forming stage. So whatever you want to start, whether marriage, whether business, you start with the formation. Formation sometimes does not start with love. It starts with attraction. And so people that love me will be committed to whatever I'm doing. People that love you will be committed to whatever you're doing. They may like my face because I'm handsome, right? And I look very young, right? So people like me. And I'm a likable person because I know how to relate with people. I can be there for people. Attraction, formation. So a babe can fall in love with me as a single person because of my attraction and because of my charisma. But charisma and attraction is not character, right? Number 2 is excitement. We get excited, formation, right? I don't know how many of you, if you ever been in love before, that when you're talking to your lover, you don't remember time. Say, hi, confess your sin. How many of you been in love? When you were in love, or you have ever been in love with someone that you completely forgot about yourself, forgot your life. I mean, you say, I love you. You say, I love you. I love you. I love you. Before you know it, 3 hours don't pass. Anybody like Dr. Princess is the only honest person here. So I will assume that other people in this meeting have never been in love before. But when you are in love, it's been written that when you are in love with someone, you become a mumu, right? That you become a mumu. And that, in fact, they said that love is between 2 mumus who become lost in their mumuism that they forget about themselves. So if you have ever been in love with someone, love at first sight, you went to a party, you saw someone that fits your spec, you'll be doing, in fact, you become a mad person. You'll be doing everything for them to notice you, for you to notice them. You'll be doing everything. You'll be looking at them, that you'll be standing up, sitting down. You will be at your best behavior because you want to be noticed. And God help you if the person is also giving you high. Before you know it, you are checking out about them. You want to find out, who is that babe? Who is that guy? Wow, I love the way he's dressed. I love it. You don't know them. I don't know what you're falling in love with, but you don't know them. You're just excited for nothing, right? Maybe for something, because it can lead to something else. Okay, so someone said, no mumuism here, no mumuism here, but couldn't be deceiving yourself. What is happening there is there's energy alignment. That's what is happening, energy alignment. So your energy looks like it aligns, but it has not been tested. Loyalty has not been tested. So you realize that when people are tricked into parting with their money, there is what looks like subliminal hypnosis in the equation. So you left your house, you didn't plan to give $1,000, but you got yourself into a meeting. And after getting into the meeting, someone began to talk about what you didn't understand. And the guy says, I need people that will give $1,000. There was no thought of $1,000 before you left your house. So music is playing, everything is slow. Stories are fine. There's a rap going on. Someone is rapping. Stories are moving at a level. This person did this, and this was what happened. That person did that, and then the music is playing. God forgive musicians, right? All those keyboardists, God forgive them. And the thing is entering your heart. It's entering your soul. You are seeing what can happen. They are painting a picture in your head. You are seeing how your money can grow. How by giving this 1,000, you will just go tomorrow morning and someone will knock at your door and say, Mr. God's will. God just told me to give you $1 million. Oh, wow. Right? That is what happens at the level of farming. At the level of farming, you will need a whole lot of sweet talking. You will need to do a lot of the things you don't mean. And advertising is built on that, right? Every advertising is built on overt communication, right? Formation, and it's a good state, lovely state. Everybody gives flowers at this stage. Nobody beats a woman at this stage. Nobody talks down on a man at this stage. Everyone puts up their best behavior. The problem is that life does not end with forming. Because almost immediately after formation of the group, we're excited. You have the first meeting. We're going to conquer the world. Oh, House of Saviors. Woo, let's go. Everybody, let's do it. After the first meeting and second meeting, storming begins to come up because human beings are not perfect. So you need to expect storms. It will happen. The only question is, when will it happen? Now, what happened in storming situation is when you now realize that, oh, wow, I love this guy, but you now got him married and you started living together. Now you discover that this guy his exhaust pipe is broken. That by 2 a.m., there's a level of snoring that starts, and that snoring wakes you up. So it's like it's in gear. It goes from gear 1 to gear 3. And then the snoring is, and then you're wondering, oh my God, what did I marry? Right? Storming is that stage. Oh my God, Fidel. Storming is that stage where you suddenly realize that, well, what I got was not, I married, I was in love with Leah, but I was in love with Rachel, but I was giving Leah. Right? Storming is when you just discover that the guy that your light and shiny armor, does not know how to manage money. This guy is perpetually in debt. Right? This guy makes noise when he's eating. That was me. My cutlery was always making noise. My wife said she was irritated. I was always rushing my food. Right? So you see the guy on stage who is so powerful, he's singing, then you marry him and you realize that this guy is a broke ass. He doesn't even think about making money, just think about spending money. Storming is when beliefs incompatibility kicks in. You now realize that, no, this is not what I want for my life. Snoring is when social engineering kicks in, wherein the culture that produced both of you is now at war. So in a group, there are people who believe they must say nothing. There are people who believe they must say something. There are people who believe they must say something when there is nothing to be said. All of them, their energies begin to show. And so it looks like a madhouse. But guess what? Storming is like turbulence in a plane. That there is turbulence does not mean that the plane is going to crash. As a matter of fact, there have been less plane crash that started or that was attributed to turbulence. Turbulence will hardly crash a plane, right? But it's a reality of life. So when there is turbulence, that's when you will see people be at their religious bed. In the name of Jesus, in the name of Allah, people begin to pray. I used to do that, but if the plane was going to crash, it will kill all of us anyways, and we'll go to heaven, wherever, right? So I no longer get agitated about turbulence anymore. So your upbringing, the environment everyone grew up, if you belong to any group and there's alignment from day one and there's no crisis, please also run. Because it's either you are in a group where the person is a draconian leader or the person is someone everybody's just afraid of and nobody's willing to speak the truth. So in storming is where your interests begin to show up. To say, even though we came together as a group, my interest is to cash out. I don't plan to go all the way. I came to this group because there's a girl I'm eyeing. And once I've gotten the girl, I'm on my way out. I came to this group because I just want to save some money. Now that I've saved the money, I'm on my way out. I came to this group because I thought they will make me the leader. Now that they've picked another leader, I'm on my way out. People's motive will show up in storming, right? Storming is culture incompatibility, where we now discover that our culture is not together, right? Storming is where departures sometimes happen. And I must say this carefully. In marriage, for example, storming is where a lot of marriages fail, even though they could have been managed. But let me also say this. There are marriages that need to crash. There are departures that need to happen, because if people are going to kill themselves, if they don't separate, then let them separate so that at least two people can be alive than for them to be together and die. Right? So storming is not bad, but storming will test the group because there is another stage after storming, and that stage is numbing. Right? So some of you are listening to me, you are in storming in your marriage, you are in storming in your relationship. Storming can come in the first year of marriage. If your storm comes between the first 5 years of your marriage, you are very lucky. Go and do testimony. It's tougher when storming is coming in the 15th, 16th, 20th year of your marriage. It's tougher that way because, children have been born, so there are so many reasons that can, and that's why a lot of women die. Some men die in the relationship because you started thinking of, where am I going to start from, right? And so storming is good. You must learn to manage it and understand that when people disagree with you, when people are asking questions, they are not you. So you cannot expect them to behave like you. When you are with a lover and you now discover that the guy snores at 2 a.m. and he wakes you up, you now begin to think of, what can I do? Am I going to leave him because of his snoring? Am I not going to go and marry someone else? Or can I get a mouth guard when he's snoring and put the mouth guard when he's sleeping, so that, you know, the intensity of the exhaust pipe can be minimized, right? But if you go through storming together, and usually in a group setting, what the group must be loyal to in storming is the vision, the mission, the values, and the culture of the group. Because storming can be a crisis situation that may make you adjust where you are going to appease a group of people. Once you do that, your business is over because you have changed the trajectory of your journey. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be totally rigid, because storming can also help you understand what you need to check, what you need to change. That's not what I'm talking about. If you notice that there is something that is not right that you need to change, for example, maybe you started a business and then the storm is as a result of the fact that, you know, husband, wife, children are the owners of the business. There is no other person on the board, right? The storms can arise. If we are giving you money, why should it be your family member alone on the board, right? That's not good for us. So storm can arise. If that is the case, then you need to adjust and say, let us bring independent-minded people so that everyone's collective interest can be taken care of. But in the situation where it's just me, myself, and I, storm can arise. But what I'm saying is, where that is not the case, loyalty must be to the vision, because in a bid not to allow people go, you might warehouse monsters and they may mess up the best interest of what you're trying to build. Right. So someone is saying, still loving the snoring in 25 years and now in assurance of delivery. Right. So numbing is storming resolution. Right. And I'll show you how the BlackRock group navigated this, you know, as I round up. Now in numbing, we now realize that, okay, this guy is a good man, but this snoring is only 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. So what can I do? Maybe I will convert 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. to my prayer time, right? I'll just put Pastor Jerry between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. and I'll pray, right? It can be, that's what you're going to do. Because you have now resolved that this snoring is not going to stop, except you now go to get the mouth guard, or maybe it's not sleeping well, maybe the pillow or whatever, or maybe it becomes your study time. It can be anything. But you have resolved that my spouse is not a bad person. This person is not a bad person. This person just has the challenge that's never going away. But I'm willing to live with it because it's not really threatening like that. So in numbing, purpose is number one. Why am I in this group? Why am I married? In my sessions with married couples, whenever I ask them, why did you get married? They can't answer that question. The questions are always very subjective, very weak. I got married because I've always wanted someone to take care of the home. That person needed a housekeeper. I got married because I've always needed someone, she was a good cook. You needed a mama cass or a good cook, not a wife. So purpose. Why are we in this group? Why am I in this marriage? If your purpose for being in the group is not going to last you a lifetime to deliver the goods you want, then you might need to get out. Number two is respect. To say that we don't always have to agree, but I must accord the highest form of dignity to the person, right? Number three is acceptance. To say, you know what, in a group, we know, or God God's will, we bring calculator. You don't have to like it, but we bring calculator. And it's the one that is likely going to punch the numbers. Mr. Goswill is here. I mean, he's the only man I know carries calculator up and down, even till now. Maybe he has changed now. You know, he will punch his calculator and say, this number is not aligned, you know. We know. And we know that it's not out of trying to expose you. It's trying to protect all of us. Because if the numbers align, then we will get the returns that we plan to get, right? So accepting people for who they are. You know Mrs. Lawal means well. You don't have to like her style. She will raise her hand and question you. But it's not because she wants to disrespect you. She's only seeking clarity. Number four is understanding. Understanding is standing under the person. So we're going to do a session on personality analysis and management for us to better understand the four energies that are usually in the group, right? Maybe we'll do that next week or upper week. But understanding is to say, you know what? Okay, God goes me is still carrying calculator, right? To say that I now know better. I know God's will is doing this out of love for all of us, right? Because if he knows this thing is going to hurt us, I remember there was a transaction we were going to do many years ago. It was investment in a movie. We were about 4 of us at the meeting, negotiation meeting. We were going to put about 25 million in a movie, right? And I remember that meeting. It was at Sheraton Hotel. Goswill kept saying, the numbers does not align. What if this man dies? What is the edge? He was asking those questions, right? Even me, I was looking at him and I was like, what's wrong with Goswill? He said, let us do this deal. He looks interesting. He looks exciting, blah, blah, blah. But he kept, I remember I stood up from where we sat down, went to stand at a far distance, and he kept carrying his calculator. He's saying this number does not add up. This man, what is his reputation? Has he done any business like this before? Has he managed this kind of money before? What if he does not? He kept asking. But guess what happened? The man collected the money and went to do premiere in London and flew people on business class. By the time he came back, money has kaput. That was the end. Till date, I'm not sure we got the money back. So understanding is knowing that there are people within your team, they disagree with you, but it's out of love so that the group does not implode. Many leaders in Africa cannot stand people who contradict, who stand against them at meetings. So one day I was invited to a meeting. They said it was a strategy meeting. It was a church. My pastor was there. And then everything my pastor says, everyone agrees. Everyone agrees. Then I stood up and said, this is supposed to be a strategy meeting. We are not here because Reverend wanted us to endorse what he's saying. It's a strategy meeting, which means you need to put your best foot forward and you need to be independent-minded. And everyone was looking at me. But that's it. And my pastor said, yes, praise is correct. I did not bring you here to come and be endorsing what I'm doing. So understanding. Next is love. To say, yes, we disagree, but the bond of love must not be broken. Then personal and group development. We now say to ourselves, it's time for us to develop our people. That was the only reason we didn't collect money for investment in House of Zero in year 1, because we felt the first thing is group development. Let's grow our people. Let's develop them. Let's bring them up to speed at a certain level so that when they are investing in anything, they are investing with their eyes wide open, with enough intelligence, not out of sentiment. Now, when you navigate storming, you now get to performance, which is where you build culture, which is where you reinvent yourself, and which is where you begin to get coached at a higher level. So it's important for you to know that in every group, you're going to go through forming, whether marriage, you're going to go through storming, storms will come. It doesn't mean it's the end. If you keep your eyes on performing and on winning, you will know that this is part of the reality of life. It helps you understand better who you are dealing with and helps you now get to knowing where you accept them for who they are, where you understand the purpose for getting into it, where you respect them, where you understand them, you love them, and where you prioritize personal and group development. If you understand this, can you type hi? Right, let me be sure that you understand me. Now, let me get back to our case study. In our case study, right, and I copied this on Wikipedia when I was doing my study about them. Thank you very much. Think sought funding, right? It sought funding because, when it was going to start out, it needed more funding. So it sought funding for initial operating capital, from Pete Patterson of the Blackstone Group. So there's another group called Blackstone Group. And the group believed in Think's vision of a firm devoted to risk management. So Peterson called it Blackstone Financial Management in exchange for 50% stake in the bond business. Initially, Blackstone gave Think and his team a $5 million credit line. Within months, the business has turned profitable. And by 1989, the group's assets are quadrupled to $2.7 billion US. The percentage of stake owned by Blackstone also fell to 40% compared to Think's stock. By 1992, Blackstone had a stake equating to about 35% of the company, and Stephen A. Schwarzman and Think were considering selling shares to the public. So Stephen was the one representing the Blackstone Group, while Think was from the BlackRock Group. So there has been a merger. So the firm adopted the name BlackRock and was managing 17 billion in assets by the end of the year. At the end of 1994, so you see where the storm came. BlackRock was managing $53 billion in 1994. Schwarzman and Think had an internal dispute over method of compensation and equity. So this was their own storm. Think wanted to share equity with the new hires to lure talent from banks. So Think felt that let's be people-driven. Let's help our people working with us, let them have equity. Then people that want to join us, there are some expertise that we want, but we can't pay them. Let's give them equity. Let it be our thing as against me and you, right? But Schwarzman did not want to further lower Blackstone's stake. And you can't blame him. He's also representing an interest group. So he has to look for what is best for them. So because they couldn't agree, so one was going to be socialist, the other person was going to be capitalist. That was basically what was happening there, right? So what did they do? They agreed to part ways. So in some storming situation, people will part ways, right? It's not out of place. Nobody is bad, right? Everyone will speak to their interest. So they agreed to part ways, and Schwarzman sold BlackRock mortgage. Sold BlackRock. A decision he called a heroic mistake. He later regretted it because of what BlackRock eventually became, right? He thought that he was protecting the interest of the investors and he couldn't lower his stake holding. But this other guy says, let's attract the best talent. Let's give them equity, which is what you should do when you grow to a certain level and you want some level of new talent that can take your business to the next level and make them global. You cannot warehouse 100% all the time and think it's just you and yourself and your wife and your children. No, you need to think of the people who work with you, who are going to give their lives to you and say, okay, we can give some level of stakes, right? So because there was incompatibility in their shared values, they went their separate ways, and we all knew what BlackRock had become, but he called it a heroic mistake. In June 1994, Blackstone sold mortgage security unit with 25 billion in assets to PNC Financial Services for 240 million. The units are traded mortgages and other fixed assets, and during one of the proceeds, changed its name from Blackstone Financial Management to BlackRock Financial Management. Schwarzman resigned with Blackstone, while Fink became chairman and CEO of BlackRock. But the group that everybody talks about today is the group that was people-oriented, which is BlackRock. Let me tidy this up by saying to you today that teamwork, according to Andrew Carnegie, is the ability to work together towards a common vision, the ability to direct individual accomplishment towards organizational objective. It is the fuel that allows common people to attain uncommon results. So you will never attain uncommon results if you don't embrace group dynamics, if you don't embrace team dynamics. Let me tell you this. If all of us in this meeting, 92 of us drop ₦1 million today, we will have 92 million. Now, if, let's assume, God forbid, we lose the 92 million, right? It cannot be as painful as when each of us, lost 90 million, right? And that's the essence of a group, that you are able to collaborate from a skill perspective. So there are people who have skills, the other people don't have skills. I don't like numbers normally. I use numbers, but I don't like to calculate. God's will like to calculate. So I love to have him around me because he has saved me from so many terrible decisions I could have made, simply by understanding numbers. Between him and my wife, they'll tell me these numbers does not align. And I look at them and I say, okay, I don't agree. My emotion says otherwise. But numbers, people, because numbers is precision. Numbers never lie. 1 + 1 in Japan is 2. It's the same in Nigeria. It's the same all over the world. So teamwork is the ability to work together towards a common vision. So you want to ask in the groups you belong to, what is the vision of this group? The ability to direct individual accomplishment towards organizational objective. Is it about one person wanting to be popular or wanting to cash out, or is it about all of us wanting to be big? We always say all the time that one rich man in the midst of 6 poor people is the 7th poor man in disguise. All of us can be rich. There are models that are proven that everyone in a group can be rich. If you bring your 1 million, I bring my 10 naira, at least what we have is 1,010,000 naira. With 1,010,000 naira, the person with 10 naira is able to partake in an investment opportunity that can benefit, and he can have the return on investment because he may not have been able to do that ordinarily by himself. It is the fuel that allows common people to attain uncommon results. So to attain uncommon results, it cannot be you, myself, and I. It has to be a team. It has to be a group. So here are my questions for you today. 1, what do you want to build? Number 2, who do you need to build with? Number 3, who needs to go? Because in some cases, some people need to go. 4, who needs to come? So you might want to look at your personal life, your group life, whatever you belong to, and ask this question sincerely. So people are running small companies that need to collapse into a bigger one. There is no shame in it. You might want to analyze your life this way and say, won't I be better off working with someone else, working in another organization with this person because visions align, and ask for a bit of equity, right? And I'm going to give my all because it's not going to be because maybe the person has a higher brand, or, I mean, you can look at that, especially if you are alone and is wearing you out and you are calling people and nobody's responding to you. You might want to join an alliance and say, this is where we are. This is our valuation right now. Can we collapse it into yours and in exchange for this equity so that we can build something that can stand the test of time? And the Poitler says, find a group of people who challenge and inspire you. Spend a lot of time with them and it will change your life. Find a group of people who challenge and inspire you. Spend a lot of time with them and it will change your life. I mean, that was the first thing I was taught, about energy alignment and energy management. That if you are a very wealthy person and you spend most of your time with poor people who don't think about wealth, they will suck your energy and drain your energy, and in no time you'll begin to talk like them. But if you are a poor person and you spend most of your time with wealthy people, truly wealthy people, the numbers they are calling will intimidate you. It will stretch your heart. But after a while, you realize that you will no longer settle for a life that is normal or a life that is ordinary. You begin to aspire, and the numbers you are calling will start to change. And I have a terrible habit. I mean, it's a good habit. Whenever if I want ₦1 million, I will shoot for 10 million. If I want 10 million, I'll shoot for 100 million, because I know life always resets itself to the nearest zeros, right? So I know that if I want 200 million, I need to shoot for 2 billion mentally, because by thinking of 2 billion mentally, I will naturally land in the realm of 200 million. That's how these things work. So find a group of people who challenge and inspire you, spend a lot of time with them, and it will change your life. Thank you very much. I hope this has been helpful. I'll see you next week. But one thing is clear, you cannot go global or build for the long haul without a team or without a group. So normalize storming. It's part of life, but move from storming to norming on your way to performing. Thank you. God bless you. Over to you, Oluwashem.
Thank you so much, PF. That is a lot to chew. We have to watch this replay. Oh, it's a lot. Thank you so much, PF. This is power-packed. Please, let's appreciate PF. Let's appreciate PF in our way, and let us know what you're taking away. Like we said, what are we taking away from today's session? So it's not yet like another sermon that we have just come to hear. For me, I have learned that we can't do things alone, right? We must, if we want uncommon results, we must have teams. And in building those teams, there's fundamental truths that we must be able to, to handle, right? And there were 4 questions that we were asked for those who are already in teams. Or rather, those who want to build teams. What do you want to build? Who do you need to build? Who needs to go? And who needs to come, right? And for those